The first time my brother-in-law Bradley called me just a housewife, I smiled and brushed it off. The 100th time? I started plotting his downfall. I'm Edith, and until last month, I was the perfect example of what Bradley liked to call living the easy life. You know the type. Organizing school runs, managing household finances, coordinating family events, and keeping everyone's lives running smoothly while making it look effortless. Another lovely dinner, Edith. Bradley announced at our monthly family gathering, dabbing his mouth with a napkin. Must be nice having all day to perfect your cooking skills while some of us are out there in the real world. I caught my sister Rose's eye across the table. She gave me that look. The one that said, "I can't believe you're letting him get away with this again." Actually, I replied, maintaining my smile, I spent most of today helping the school board secure funding for a new STEM program. But yes, the pot roast did turn out well, didn't it? Bradley waved his hand dismissively. Oh, volunteer work. Cute. Try managing a multi-million-dollar company sometime. Now that's real stress. My husband Heidi shifted uncomfortably in his chair but said nothing. Typical. He never could stand up to his older brother. Speaking of stress, Bradley's wife Andrea chimed in. Bradley just closed another major deal. What was it, honey? 20 million? 22, Bradley corrected, puffing up like a peacock. But who's counting? He laughed at his own joke while I fought the urge to throw my wine in his face. Mom, can I be excused? My daughter whispered, clearly sensing the tension. I nodded, watching her escape to the safety of her room. You know, Edith, Bradley continued, swirling his expensive whiskey. You really should thank your lucky stars Heidi makes enough for you to stay home. In today's economy, most women don't have that luxury. I felt my phone buzz in my pocket. Probably Sierra, my best friend who'd made it big in corporate consulting. The irony wasn't lost on me that while Bradley was patronizing me about the business world, I was ignoring calls from one of the most influential women in our city's financial district. I am grateful, I said, standing to clear the plates. Just like I'm sure you're grateful for all the connections I've helped you make at the charity galas I organize. You know, the ones where you meet half your clients. Bradley's smile faltered for just a second. Oh, those fancy parties? Please. Real business happens in boardrooms, not at your little social events. Rose stood up abruptly. I think I'll help Edith with the dishes. She followed me into the kitchen, closing the door behind us. I swear to God, Edith, if you don't put him in his place soon, I will, she hissed, grabbing a dish towel. Did you hear about what happened at his company last week? I raised an eyebrow. No, what? Word is, his partner Terrell's been making some questionable moves. They lost a major contract because of it. The information settled in my mind like a seed finding fertile soil. Really? Bradley hasn't mentioned anything. Of course not. Doesn't fit his master of the universe narrative, does it? Through the kitchen window, I could see Bradley holding court in our backyard, probably sharing another story about his business genius with Heidi and Andrea. The setting sun cast long shadows across his face, and for a moment, I imagined those shadows were bars of a cage, one he'd built himself with his arrogance. You know what Sierra always says, Rose continued, drying a wine glass with unnecessary vigor. The bigger they are, the harder they fall, I finished, a plan already forming in my mind. My phone buzzed again. This time I checked it. A text from Sierra. Need to talk ASAP. It's about Bradley's company. You won't believe what I just heard. I looked out at Bradley again, still gesturing grandly as he told his story. He caught my eye and gave me that condescending little nod he always did, the one that said, "Thanks for dinner, little housewife." I smiled back, but this time it wasn't my usual peaceful smile. This time it had teeth. Rose, I said, turning to my sister. I think it's time Bradley learned exactly what a housewife can do. She grinned, understanding immediately. Finally, what changed your mind? Let's just say I'm tired of being grateful. I picked up my phone to reply to Sierra. And I think the real world is about to get very interesting for our dear Bradley. Sierra's office always made me feel like I'd stepped into another world. Floor-to-ceiling windows, modern art, and that unmistakable air of power. a far cry from my kitchen where Bradley assumed I spent all my time. "You're not going to believe this," Sierra said, gesturing for me to sit. "Bradley's company is in serious trouble." I settled into the leather chair across from her desk. "Rose mentioned something about a lost contract?" "Oh, honey, it's way worse than that." Sierra pulled up something on her tablet. "Tyrell's been cooking the books for months. The company's hemorrhaging money, and Bradley's too arrogant to see it." As if on cue, my phone lit up with a text from Andrea. "Bradley's acting weird. Came home at 3 a.m. last night. Says everything's fine, but..." "How bad is it?" I asked Sierra. "Bad enough that my firm's considering a hostile takeover." She leaned forward. "And here's the kicker. Guess who Tyrell approached about partnering with him to push Bradley out?" "You're kidding." "Nope. He has no idea we're friends. Thinks he's being clever." Sierra's smile was razor sharp. "Want to hear something even better? The Wilson contract Bradley's been bragging about for months? It's hanging by a thread, and the only reason they haven't pulled out completely is because of the charity work you did with Mrs. Wilson last summer." I sat back, processing this information. "Does Bradley know this?" "Please. Bradley probably thinks Mrs. Wilson stuck around because of his charming personality." Sierra rolled her eyes. "Speaking of which..." Her office door burst open, and there stood Bradley himself, his usually immaculate appearance slightly disheveled. "Sierra, I didn't expect..." He stopped short when he saw me. "Edith, what are you doing here?" "Just having coffee with my friend," I said innocently. "What brings you to this part of town?" Bradley's face did something complicated. "Friend? You know Sierra?" "Know her?" Sierra laughed. "Edith and I go way back. College roommates, actually. But please, have a seat. What can I do for you?" Bradley sat down slowly, his eyes darting between us. I wanted to discuss some potential business opportunities." "Oh?" Sierra's voice was honey-sweet. "Would these opportunities have anything to do with Tyrell's recent activities?" The color drained from Bradley's face. "How did you..." "Word gets around," Sierra said, "especially when someone's trying to shop around a company takeover behind their partner's back." Bradley's phone rang, interrupting whatever excuse he was about to make. He checked it and swore under his breath. "Excuse me, I need to take this." He stepped out into the hallway, but we could still hear him through the door. "What do you mean they're pulling out?" No, call Mrs. Wilson. I don't care if she's not taking our calls. Figure it out." I turned to Sierra. "Should we tell him?" "About what? That you're the reason his company still has any contracts at all? Or that Tyrell's been meeting with our firm's competitors?" Sierra shook her head. "Let him sweat a little." Bradley came back in, looking like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. "Sierra, I need to speak with you privately about..." "Anything you need to say to me, you can say in front of Edith," Sierra interrupted. "After all, she's on our board of community advisors." I thought Bradley's eyes might pop out of his head. "She's what?" "Oh, didn't you know?" Sierra's voice dripped with false surprise. "Edith's been instrumental in several of our major community investment decisions. In fact, she's the one who first brought Mrs. Wilson's charitable foundation to our attention." Bradley collapsed into his chair, finally connecting the dots. "The Wilson contract. Isn't that funny?" I said, standing up. "How the real world works sometimes?" I gathered my purse, enjoying the way Bradley's face had turned an interesting shade of gray. "I should get going. I have a school board meeting to chair. Just another day of not having a real job." As I reached the door, Bradley called out, "Edith, wait." I turned back. "Yes?" He swallowed hard. I might need your help." "Might?" Sierra prompted. "I definitely need your help," he corrected, looking like every word physically pained him. I smiled, thinking of all those condescending comments over the years. "Well, isn't that interesting? Tell you what, Bradley, why don't you come over for dinner tomorrow night? We can discuss it then. After all, I have all day to cook, right?" I left him there, sitting in Sierra's office, finally realizing that his perfect world was crumbling, and his despised housewife sister-in-law might be his only hope of saving it. "You're really going to make him squirm, aren't you?" Rose asked, helping me prepare dinner the next evening. The satisfaction in her voice was unmistakable. "I'm just going to let karma do its job," I replied, checking the oven, with maybe a little push in the right direction. "A little push?" Rose snorted. "Sis, you've got him cornered like a rat in a trap." The doorbell rang exactly at 7. Bradley was nothing if not punctual when he wanted something. I took my time answering it, smoothing my apron deliberately. He stood there looking distinctly uncomfortable, holding an expensive bottle of wine. Andrea hovered behind him, her usual confident smile nowhere to be seen. "Come in," I said warmly. "Dinner's almost ready." "Edith," Bradley started as soon as they were seated in the living room. "About yesterday." "Wine?" I interrupted, taking the bottle. "Let's wait for Heidi. He should be home any minute. And I invited someone else who might be able to help with your situation." Right on cue, the doorbell rang again. Bradley's face went pale when he saw who it was. "Mrs. Wilson." I greeted the elegant woman at the door. "Thank you so much for coming." "Margaret, please," she corrected, embracing me. "I wouldn't miss this for the world, especially after that wonderful work you did with our Foundation's education initiative." Bradley nearly choked on his wine. Heidi arrived moments later, and we all sat down to dinner. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. "So, Bradley," Mrs. Wilson said, delicately cutting into her salmon, "Edith tells me you've been having some troubles at work." Well," Bradley stammered, shooting me a panicked look. "It's nothing we can't handle." Andrea jumped in, ever the loyal wife. "Bradley always figures something out." "Does he?" Mrs. Wilson raised an eyebrow. "Because I heard some rather disturbing things about your partner Tyrell's activities. Things that make me question whether we should continue our contract at all." The color drained from Bradley's face. "Mrs. Wilson, I can explain." "Can you?" She set down her fork. "Because I've been trying to reach you for weeks. Your office keeps giving me the runaround. The only reason I'm here tonight is because Edith called and assured me you were worth giving a second chance." I could practically see Bradley's worldview shifting as he looked at me with new eyes. I had no idea," he managed. "No, you didn't," Mrs. Wilson agreed. "You were too busy dismissing people like your sister-in-law to notice who really holds influence in this community." Heidi cleared his throat. "Bradley, maybe it's time to listen to what Edith has to say." I took a sip of wine, savoring the moment. "I have a proposal for you, Bradley. But first, I need you to understand something. The world doesn't work the way you think it does. Success isn't just about boardroom deals and power moves. It's about relationships, trust, and respect." "I'm starting to see that," Bradley muttered. "Are you?" Rose challenged. "Because from where I'm sitting, you're only here because you're desperate." "Rose," I warned, but she wasn't finished. "No, he needs to hear this. For years, you've treated Edith like she was beneath you, like being a housewife meant being stupid or worthless. Well, guess what? While you were busy being important, she was building a network that could save your ass. Or destroy it." Andrea gasped. "That's a bit harsh." "Is it?" Mrs. Wilson interrupted. "Because from what I've seen, it's exactly what needed to be said." Bradley sat there, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. "What do you want from me, Edith? I want you to understand your actions have consequences," I said quietly. "I want you to recognize that value comes in many forms. And I want you to make this right. Not just with me, but with everyone you've stepped on while climbing your ladder of success. And if I do, then I'll help you save your company. I'll connect you with the right people, help you rebuild those burned bridges. But it won't be free and it won't be easy." "What are your terms?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I smiled, reaching for my briefcase. "I thought you'd never ask." I pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. "Sierra helped me draw these up. I think you'll find them very interesting." As Bradley opened the folder, his eyes widening at its contents, I caught Rose's approving nod. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about reshaping our entire family dynamic, and Bradley was about to learn exactly what a housewife could do when pushed too far. Bradley stared at the documents, his hands trembling slightly. "You want a 30% stake in my company?" 20% ownership, I corrected, plus a seat on the board and 10% of profits directed to the educational foundation I'm establishing. It's all there in black and white. "This is insane," he sputtered. "You can't possibly." "I can and I will," I interrupted. "Or you can try to salvage what's left of your company without my help. I'm sure Tyrell would love that." Mrs. Wilson leaned forward. "If I may, Bradley, you're not seeing the bigger picture here. Edith's involvement would restore confidence in your leadership. My foundation would certainly feel more secure about maintaining our contract." "And what about Tyrell?" Andrea asked, finally finding her voice. "He's still a partner." "Not for long," I said, pulling another document from my briefcase. "Sierra's firm has enough evidence of his financial misconduct to force him out. Unless you'd prefer that evidence find its way to the SEC?" Bradley's face went from red to white. "You wouldn't." "Try me." I met his gaze steadily. "The question is, can your ego handle having your housewife's sister-in-law as a business partner?" Heidi cleared his throat. "Brother, I think it's time you listened. Really listened. You knew about this?" Bradley turned to him, betrayed. "I knew Edith was smart enough to run circles around both of us," Heidi replied. "I just never had the courage to say it before. But I'm saying it now. Take the deal." "There's one more condition," I added, turning to a specific page. "You need to make a public apology. Not just to me, but to every employee you've belittled, every woman you've dismissed, every person you've stepped on." "Public?" Bradley choked. "You want me to humiliate myself?" "No," Rose cut in. "She wants you to humble yourself. There's a difference." Andrea reached for the documents. "Let me see those." She read quickly, her expression changing from skepticism to surprise. "Bradley, this is actually brilliant. The restructuring plan, the community involvement initiatives, the corporate governance reforms. This could save us." "Save you?" Bradley scoffed. "We don't need—" "Yes, we do." Andrea slammed her hand on the table. "Our house is mortgaged to the hilt. Our savings are almost gone. You've been hiding it from me, but I'm not stupid. We're one bad quarter away from losing everything." The room fell silent. Bradley seemed to deflate before our eyes. "How did you know about the mortgage?" he whispered to his wife. "The same way I know about the missed payments and the credit card debt," Andrea replied. I finally started paying attention instead of just nodding and smiling. Mrs. Wilson stood up. "Well, I think I've seen enough. Edith, you have my full support. Bradley, you have until the end of the week to accept these terms, or our contract is terminated, and I suspect others will follow." After she left, Bradley sat there, staring at the documents like they might bite him. "You know what the funny thing is?" I said, starting to clear the plates. "If you had treated me with respect from the beginning, I would have helped you for nothing. But you made me earn every ounce of your disdain, so now you get to earn every ounce of my help." "I don't have a choice, do I?" he asked quietly. "You always have a choice," I replied. "Just like I had a choice to stay quiet all these years. But I'm done being quiet, Bradley. The question is, are you done being arrogant?" He picked up the pen I'd placed next to the documents. If I sign this, what's to stop you from destroying me anyway?" "Because unlike you," I said, "I understand that true power isn't about destruction. It's about construction. Building things up instead of tearing them down. Sign the papers, Bradley. Let's build something better together." His hand shook as he signed each page. Andrea signed next, then Heidi as a witness. "Welcome to the real world," I said, taking the signed documents. "Board meeting is Monday at 9. Don't be late." As Bradley and Andrea left, looking shell-shocked, Rose started laughing. "What's so funny?" I asked. I was just thinking about all those times he said you didn't have a real job. She grinned. Guess you just got hired as his boss. Heidi wrapped his arms around me. I'm sorry I didn't stand up to him sooner. It's okay, I said, patting his hand. Sometimes the long game is the better game. I looked at the signed documents, thinking about Monday's board meeting and the changes to come. Bradley was about to learn that the real world was a lot bigger than his boardroom, and I was going to enjoy every minute of teaching him that lesson. The boardroom fell silent as I walked in Monday morning, Sierra at my side. Bradley sat at the head of the table looking like he'd aged a decade over the weekend. Tyrell's face turned from confusion to shock when he saw me take a seat. What is she doing here? He demanded. Making sure you don't steal anything else, I replied pleasantly, opening my laptop. Sierra, would you like to start? Sierra stood, distributing folders to everyone present. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here to discuss some significant changes in leadership and company structure. This is ridiculous, Tyrell interrupted, standing up. Bradley, you can't be serious about letting your housewife's sister-in-law. Sit down, Tyrell, Bradley said quietly. And don't ever speak about Edith that way again. The shock on everyone's faces at Bradley defending me was almost comical. Almost, Sierra continued. We have evidence of substantial financial irregularities under Mr. Tyrrell's management. Would you like to see the documentation, or would you prefer to resign quietly? Tyrell's face turned purple. You're bluffing. I pulled out my phone and played a recording. Tyrell's own voice discussing kickbacks with a supplier. The color drained from his face. How did you— Next time you're planning to betray someone, I advised, don't do it at the country club where I organize charity events. The staff there love me. They hear everything. This is illegal, he spluttered. You can't record. Actually, Sierra interrupted, Georgia is a one-party consent state. And besides, you were in a public space. Now, about that resignation. Tyrell grabbed his briefcase and stormed out, but not before Bradley called after him. We'll be in touch about repayment arrangements. The door slammed. I turned to the remaining board members. Now, let's discuss the company's new direction. For the next 2 hours, we laid out plans for financial recovery, corporate restructuring, and community engagement initiatives. Bradley remained unusually quiet, speaking only when directly addressed. And finally, I concluded, the public statement. Bradley stiffened. Edith, please. It's non-negotiable, I said firmly. The press conference is scheduled for tomorrow morning. I've spent 20 years building my reputation, he protested weakly. Andrea, who had been sitting in as a guest, spoke up. And you've spent 20 years tearing down others, including your family. It's time, Bradley. The meeting adjourned, but as everyone filed out, Bradley remained seated, staring at his hands. Why didn't you expose Tyrell sooner? He asked quietly. You could have stopped this months ago. Because you needed to learn something, I replied, gathering my papers. And some lessons only stick when they hurt. I've been awful to you, he admitted. All these years. Yes, you have. I sat back down. But this isn't about revenge, Bradley. It's about growth. You're a brilliant businessman, but you're a terrible brother-in-law. I'm hoping we can fix both. By humiliating me in front of the entire business community? By showing them that true leadership includes admitting mistakes and making amends. I leaned forward. The question is, are you brave enough to do it? He looked at me for a long moment. Did you really hear everything at the country club? No, I smiled. But I knew if I claimed I did, Tyrell would assume the worst and run. People with guilty consciences usually do. Bradley actually laughed. You played him. Like a fiddle, I agreed. Just like he played you all these years. The difference is I did it to save your company, not destroy it. Andrea touched her husband's arm. Bradley, it's time to let go of your pride. Look what it's cost us already. He covered her hand with his. I don't know if I can do this. You can, I said, standing. Because the alternative is losing everything. And despite what you might think, I don't want that. I want my nieces and nephews to be proud of their father. I want my husband to have his brother back. I want this family to heal. And the company? The company will survive. Maybe even thrive once people see its leadership has a conscience and a commitment to change. I headed for the door but paused. The press conference is at 9 tomorrow. Wear the blue tie. It makes you look more approachable. Edith, he called after me. Thank you for not destroying me when you could have. That's what family does, I replied. We help each other grow even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. As I walked out, I heard Andrea say to Bradley, "She's right, about everything. Tomorrow would be hard for him, but necessary. Sometimes the path to redemption starts with public humiliation and ends with private growth." Bradley was about to learn that lesson the hard way, but at least he was finally ready to learn. The press conference was set to begin in 30 minutes when I overheard something that made my blood run cold. I was checking the podium setup when Terrell's voice drifted from around the corner of the building. "Everything's in place," he was saying in a low voice. "Once Bradley makes his statement, we release the documents. His reputation will be destroyed completely." "And the buyers are ready?" another voice asked. "They'll swoop in when the stock crashes. We'll get everything for pennies on the dollar." I pulled out my phone and started recording, carefully peering around the corner. Tyrell was standing with two men in expensive suits, passing them what looked like a flash drive. "What about his sister-in-law?" one of the men asked. "We heard she's involved now." Tyrell laughed. "The housewife? Please, she's in over her head. Once this hits the news, she'll run back to her kitchen where she belongs." I'd heard enough. Slipping away, I immediately called Sierra. "We have a problem," I said, forwarding her the recording. "Tyrell's planning something." "On it," she replied. "Stall Bradley's speech. Give me 15 minutes. I rushed back inside to find Bradley pacing in the green room, looking pale in his blue tie. "We need to delay," I announced. "What?" "No," Bradley protested. "If I don't do this now, I'll lose my nerve." "Trust me," I insisted, just as my phone buzzed with a text from Sierra. "Got it. Tyrell fabricated documents, coming with proof." The door burst open and Andrea rushed in. "Bradley, turn on the news, now." We flipped on the TV just in time to see Tyrell being led out of his office in handcuffs, FBI agents carrying boxes of documents behind him. "Breaking news," the reporter was saying. "Federal agents have arrested former executive Tyrell Summers on charges of fraud and corporate espionage." Bradley sank into a chair. "He was going to destroy everything. He was going to try," I corrected, showing him my phone with the recording. "But he made the same mistake you did, underestimating the housewife." Sierra appeared in the doorway, slightly out of breath. "We got him. He was planning to release fake documents during your speech, crash the company's stock, then have his partners buy it out." "How did you move so fast?" Bradley asked, amazed. "Because unlike Tyrell, I actually do have friends at the FBI." Sierra grinned. "And they've been building a case against him for months. Your sister-in-law's recording was just the final piece they needed." "The press is getting restless," Andrea warned, peeking out the door. I turned to Bradley. "This changes your speech. You need to address this too." "I don't know if I can—" "Yes, you can," I interrupted. "Because now you have a chance to show real leadership. Not just apologize for past mistakes, but demonstrate how to handle a crisis with integrity." He stood, straightening his tie. Will you stand with me?" "No," I said firmly. "This is your moment. Show them who you really are, not who you've been pretending to be." Bradley walked to the podium alone, cameras flashing. I watched from the side as he took a deep breath and began. "Good morning. By now you've seen the news about my former partner's arrest. But that's not why I called this press conference. I'm here because I need to apologize. Not just for trusting the wrong person, but for being the wrong person myself." The room fell silent as Bradley continued, his voice growing stronger. "For years, I've measured success by the wrong metrics. I've dismissed and disrespected people who deserved better. I've confused arrogance with leadership. Today, that changes. He went on to outline the company's new direction, emphasizing community involvement and ethical business practices. When he finished, the questions from reporters were surprisingly respectful. "Mr. Bradley, what role will your sister-in-law play in the company's future?" He smiled, looking directly at me. "Edith will be taking a seat on our board where she should have been all along. She's proven that true business acumen isn't about corner offices or fancy titles. It's about understanding people, building relationships, and having the courage to do what's right." As the press conference wrapped up, Heidi appeared beside me, taking my hand. "You did it," he whispered. "No," I replied, watching Bradley handle the reporters with newfound humility. "He did it. He just needed a little push." My phone buzzed with a text from Rose. "Watching the news. Is this for real?" I typed back, "It's real. Turns out even dinosaurs can evolve when they have to." Bradley was still talking to reporters, but now he was speaking about family values and the importance of respecting all contributions to success. I smiled, remembering his dismissive comments about just a housewife. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's reformation. 3 months after the press conference, I sat in my new office reviewing quarterly reports when Bradley knocked on my door. "Got a minute?" he asked, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Made it myself. From the break room, not some fancy cafe." "Will wonders never cease?" I teased, accepting the cup. "What's on your mind?" "The Wilson Foundation contract. They're expanding their commitment, doubling their investment." He sat down, looking almost shy. "Thanks to your education initiative proposal." "Our proposal," I corrected. "You did good work on those numbers. Never thought I'd be taking direction from my little brother's wife." He chuckled, then quickly added, "And I mean that as a compliment now." The office phone rang. I put it on speaker. "Yes?" "Mrs. Newton?" My assistant called. "Your husband is here with lunch, and Mrs. Wilson is online too about the charity gala." "Send Heidi in," I replied, "and tell Margaret I'll call her right back." Bradley stood to leave just as Heidi entered with takeout bags. "Stay," Heidi insisted. "We need to discuss the family dinner anyway." "About that," Bradley said, settling back down. "Andrea wants to host this time. Says it's time we returned the favor." "As long as she's cooking and not you." I laughed. "Remember the Christmas disaster of 2019? Hey, how was I supposed to know turkeys needed to thaw?" We were still laughing when Sierra burst in, waving a tablet. "You need to see this. Now." The headline made my heart skip. "Former executive Terrell Summers agrees to testify against international fraud ring." "It gets better," Sierra said, scrolling down. He named names. Big names. People who've been manipulating markets across 3 continents. "Our company?" Bradley asked, tensing. "Clean," Sierra confirmed. "Thanks to Edith's new compliance protocols, which, by the way, the SEC is considering adopting as industry standards." Heidi beamed with pride. "That's my wife. Our stock price is going to soar when this hits the wider market." Bradley mused. "All those investors who were worried about Terrell's involvement are about to see that we're the ones who helped bring down a major financial crime network." I finished. "Not bad for a housewife, huh?" Bradley winced. "I deserve that, and probably will for a long time." "Yes, you will," I agreed. "But you're learning. That counts for something." My phone buzzed with a text from Rose. "Turn on Channel 7 now." We crowded around my office TV just in time to see Tyrell being led into court, looking haggard in an orange jumpsuit. "Hard to believe that's the same man who thought he could outsmart everyone," Heidi commented. "Pride comes before a fall," I said. "Speaking of which, Bradley, how's the employee mentorship program coming along?" "Actually," he smiled, "I wanted to show you something." He pulled out his phone and played a video of himself speaking to a group of young employees, mostly women. He was answering questions about work-life balance and the importance of recognizing diverse perspectives in business. "Who are you and what have you done with my brother?" Heidi joked. "Let's just say I had an excellent teacher in humility," Bradley replied, nodding at me. Sierra checked her watch. Hate to break up this lovely family moment, but we have the investor call in 10 minutes. Right. I stood, gathering my papers. Bradley, you're leading this one. Me? But you're better at building relationships, yes. But you need to show them you've changed, that you're not the same man who let Tyrell run wild. He straightened his tie nervously. Will you stay on the call? Of course. Family supports family, even when they've been total jerks for 20 years. I'm never living that down, am I? Not a chance, Heidi and I said in unison. As we headed to the conference room, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the window. Power suit, confident stride, not exactly the image of a traditional housewife. But then again, maybe it was time to redefine what that meant. Oh, Bradley stopped suddenly. Andrea wanted me to ask, for the family dinner, should she make your famous pot roast recipe? I smiled, remembering all those dinners where he'd dismissed my cooking as cute. Tell her I'll come over early and we'll make it together. After all, some skills are worth passing on. Even to those who didn't appreciate them before? Especially to those who didn't appreciate them before. That's how change happens, one pot roast at a time. We entered the conference room, ready to face the investors. Bradley at the head of the table, me at his right hand. A family united, stronger for having been broken and rebuilt. Sometimes the best victories aren't won in boardrooms or courtrooms, but in the quiet moments when people finally see each other for who they really are. The autumn evening at Andrea and Bradley's house felt different from our previous family gatherings. The tension that used to permeate these dinners had been replaced by something warmer, more genuine. Mom, Uncle Bradley's teaching me about stocks, my daughter announced, helping to set the table. Is he now? I raised an eyebrow at Bradley, who was actually wearing an apron as he checked on the pot roast. She's a natural, he said proudly. Asked better questions than half my MBA interns. Andrea emerged from the wine cellar with a bottle. Remember when you used to say women weren't cut out for finance? Remember when I was an idiot? Bradley replied, making us all laugh. The doorbell rang. Rose arrived with Sierra, followed by Mrs. Wilson and her husband. Our family dinners had grown lately, expanding to include the people who'd helped reshape our lives. Something smells amazing, Sierra said, sniffing the air. Bradley and Andrea's first solo attempt at my pot roast, I explained. I only supervised this time. And only had to stop them from burning it twice, Heidi added, earning a playful glare from his brother. As we settled around the table, Bradley cleared his throat. Before we eat, I have an announcement. Everyone fell silent. Bradley wasn't usually one for dinner speeches anymore, not since the press conference that had changed everything. The board voted today, he continued. Edith, they want you to take over as CEO. I nearly dropped my wine glass. What? I nominated you, he said. And it was unanimous. Even the old guard agreed. You're the right person to lead the company forward. But you, I started. We'll be stepping into a new role as chairman of the board, he finished. Focusing on what I do best, strategy and partnerships. But the day-to-day leadership? That should be you. Told you so. Sierra sang out, grinning. Pay up, Rose. You bet on this? I asked incredulously. Of course we did, Rose laughed. I just thought it would take Bradley another month to swallow his pride. Very funny, Bradley said, but he was smiling. The truth is, Edith, you've been running things anyway. This just makes it official. What about the shareholders? I asked. The press? Already handled, Mrs. Wilson interjected. The major investors are thrilled. Your community initiatives have boosted both profits and public trust. The press release goes out tomorrow morning. I looked at Heidi, who squeezed my hand. You've earned this, he said softly. Besides, Bradley added, someone needs to keep me humble. Might as well be my CEO sister-in-law. Speech? Andrea called out, raising her glass. I stood, looking around at the faces of my family, both blood and chosen. When this all started, I just wanted Bradley to respect me, to see me as more than just a housewife. But somewhere along the way, it became about more than that. It became about respect for everyone, Bradley finished. About recognizing that true leadership isn't about power or position. It's about lifting others up. I agreed. About building something meaningful together. To the new CEO, Sierra proposed, raising her glass. And to family, Bradley added quietly, who sometimes teach us our hardest and most important lessons. Speaking of lessons, Andrea chimed in, the pot roast is about to burn again. Bradley rushed to the kitchen, cursing good-naturedly. Some skills take more practice than others. As laughter filled the room, I caught Rose's eye. She mouthed silently, "You did it." And I had. Not just the career transformation or the family reconciliation, but something bigger. We'd changed the narrative about what success looks like, about who gets to have a seat at the table. Bradley returned with the slightly overdone but still edible pot roast. First official act as CEO, we're hiring a cooking instructor for the executive team. Second official act, I countered, implementing a company-wide policy recognizing the value of all work, whether it's in the boardroom or the break room. Third official act, he suggested, making these family dinners a monthly tradition. That, I said, looking around at our expanded family, was never in question. As we passed dishes around the table, the conversation flowing easily between business strategy and family stories, I realized something profound. Success wasn't about winning or losing, about revenge or redemption. It was about creating spaces where everyone could grow, even those who once tried to keep you small. "Hey, Edith," Bradley called from across the table. "Remember when I said you didn't have a real job?" Hard to forget. Well, he smiled, raising his glass. "Here's to proving me wrong. CEO." The title sounded good, but not as good as the genuine respect in his voice when he said my name. Some victories aren't measured in stock prices or board votes, but in the simple acknowledgement of worth. Everyone's worth.